Day 3. The first 3 films we saw were 45365, Crip Camp, and Peer Kids. Crip Camp is my #1 pick so far, produced by Netflix and Higher Ground, Michelle and Barack Obama's production company. Higher Ground also produced American Factory, which is a documentary around labor relations in America. Some thoughts on the 3 films we've seen so far.
45365 I really liked a lot. It's a slice of life movie about a small town in western Ohio where a lot of people aren't doing very well, but it avoids the twin temptations of poverty, porn, and lyricism. It really captures the subtle class distinctions in the town, and there are a lot of just surprisingly beautiful shots.
Beautifully shot, some really great nature scenes. It was wonderful looking at it, but then I just finished reading Wayward Lies by Saidiya Hartman in one of my classes, and so it was very obvious to me that Black women and girls were very much missing, except for one very short scene in church. And for a scene that spends as much time, especially with teenage outside time and summertime fun, it was very strange not to see Black girls alongside them.
45365 was an intimate look at life in Middle America, specifically the town of Sydney, Ohio, as told by its residents. So intimate, in fact, that I felt at some points that I was eavesdropping or invading somebody's privacy. They seemed to be almost oblivious to the cameras as they went about their daily lives. I loved how the filmmakers were able to highlight the relationships, the interrelationships between all of the subjects, which really brought home this feeling of shared humanity.
Crip Camp was terrific. I'm a sucker for movies that have a pro-hippie stance, and in that respect this was almost a kind of anti-Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's a big budget production from Netflix and the Obamas that nonetheless has a, in some ways, surprisingly subversive take on politics and on how people working together can make a better world for themselves and for others.
Crip Camp was the standout of the night. A movie about the disability rights movement, and also very much about how to build coalitions across difference, and not just difference in terms of race, but ability and gender and sexuality, and it was really very beautiful.
Crip Camp. So at once a history of how the disability rights movement fought to bring about the Americans with Disabilities Act, and an inspiring story of how grassroots efforts can bring about tremendous change. I was also really inspired by the efforts of the researchers to pull all these different pieces of the film together. The story that they told was in no way formed, and they were able to document it and create it and present something that was just an amazing film of resilience and strength in the face of adversity.
Peer Kids lets us spend time with a group of gay and trans homeless kids who are living off of Christopher Street in New York City. The director, Elegance Bratton, had a similar experience himself, and so in some ways he's telling a version of his own story, but he made an important point in introducing the movie, which is that in thinking about politics in this country, we need to listen to the voices of those who, as he says, have the least to lose and the most to gain.
Peer Kids, I'm still thinking about. I think the narrative structure was a little bit, or the lack of the narrative structure was a little bit too loose for me. I lost some characters. I couldn't figure out where they were. We were talking in the car about whether or not some guy that committed suicide was the one who the memorial was, or did he commit suicide? Like, what was that about? It was a hard one to watch at 10 o'clock after a long day.
Peer Kids, a story of societal and familial rejection of queer and trans kids, mostly teens of color, that necessitate them having to find and create new family, new homes, wherever it is that they are. What struck me about this film was the daily precariousness of their lives, the choices that they had to make, on a daily basis as to how to eat, where to get food, where to get money, and how vulnerable a population they really are as they live in the open.
3 films so far, 12 more to go, day 3.